The room was chaos incarnate.
Welcome to Secret of Her
Alarms blared, monitors beeped frantically, and the smell of antiseptic mingled with fear. In the center of the emergency bay lay SEAL Petty Officer Nathaniel, Nate Rook, his body battered from an IED explosion during a covert operation overseas. 15 of the nation's most skilled physicians crowded around him, each moving with precision honed over years of training, yet despite their expertise, Nate's vitals continued to plummet. His oxygen levels dropped, his blood pressure faltered, and his life teetered on the edge of nothingness. Time was slipping away, and with every passing second, hope seemed more like a cruel illusion. At that moment, the quietest voice in the room, a voice often overlooked, rose with determination. Sarah Whitman, a 28-year-old nurse with soft brown hair pulled into a tight bun, had spent years in trauma units, yet she'd never been given the authority to lead in a high-stakes combat procedure. But watching Nate slip away ignited something inside her that refused to be ignored. She had seen the odds, the statistics, the protocols. She knew this was the moment where courage had to outweigh hesitation. Before she acted, a thought flashed through her mind: if this SEAL could survive the battlefield, perhaps he could survive this, but only if someone dared to step into the unknown. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she prepped her kit, her heart pounding in her ears louder than the beeping monitors. Around her, the physicians debated and coordinated, yet their words were muffled, like distant echoes in a storm. She realized that this wasn't just a battle against Nate's injuries, it was a battle against doubt, against fear, against the silent question of whether she, a nurse overlooked by many, could change the course of a man's life. If you believe in kindness, courage, and second chances, pause for a moment, like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel, because stories like these remind us all that one act of bravery can ripple farther than we ever imagine. Sarah stepped forward. Her voice was steady but carried the weight of conviction. "Let me try a combat thoracotomy," she said. The room froze for a fraction of a second. 15 physicians exchanged glances, some skeptical, some desperate. But with Nate's oxygen saturation dipping dangerously low, the silence of indecision was more deadly than any error. Sarah had trained for this, had rehearsed it in simulations, had faced her fears in the quiet corners of hospital corridors and combat med classrooms. This was her moment. The procedure was grueling, both physically and emotionally. Nate's chest was a battlefield in miniature, internal bleeding, collapsed lung, heart struggling to sustain life. Sarah's hands moved with a precision that belied the adrenaline surging through her veins. Every incision, every maneuver had to be perfect. She could hear the muffled commands of the attending doctors, but she blocked them out, focusing entirely on the rhythm of life itself, the fragile thread that connected breath to heart to hope. Each heartbeat that flickered on the monitor became a reminder that life was fighting back. Memories of Nate's unit flashed through her mind, how they trained relentlessly, how they depended on each other in impossible situations. She thought of his family back home in Virginia, of the little things that made a soldier human, the laughter in the barracks, the letters from loved ones that he cherished. Every thought fueled her hands, sharpened her focus, and steeled her heart against the fear that threatened to paralyze her. Outside the chaos of the OR, time seemed suspended. Nurses and doctors watched with bated breath, aware that history was unfolding in real time. Sarah's face was a mask of calm, but her mind raced. She adjusted, recalibrated, and pressed on, performing techniques that many said should only be attempted by surgeons with decades of experience. The room was tense, every eye locked on Nate's chest, every mind holding its own silent prayer. Minutes stretched like hours. Sweat ran down Sarah's temples, yet she barely noticed. Her hands had become extensions of her will, her determination, her compassion. Then, almost imperceptibly, a shift occurred. The monitors began to stabilize. Nate's heartbeat, once a faint and failing pulse, found rhythm again. Oxygen levels rose. Color returned to his skin. The room exhaled collectively, a wave of relief and awe crashing over everyone. Nate was fighting. And it was because someone refused to let him go quietly, someone who had been underestimated, overlooked, and yet possessed a courage that transcended titles or rank. The attending physician, Dr. Harrison, finally approached, placing a hand on Sarah's shoulder. His eyes were wide, a mixture of respect and astonishment. You saved him," he said, the weight of those words sinking in like a bomb over the room. Sarah could only nod, her body shaking from the exertion and the adrenaline, but her heart swelling with a quiet, profound triumph. She had acted not because she wanted recognition, but because she believed in the power of one person's action to change everything. In the following days, Nate recovered in the intensive care unit. He awoke with a groggy confusion, only to be greeted by Sarah standing quietly by his bedside. The first thing he did was grasp her hand, eyes wet with gratitude, understanding that without her intervention, he might have been another statistic, another name in a long list of battlefield casualties. Nurses and doctors whispered about the courage it took to perform such a procedure, but Sarah never claimed the spotlight. She returned to her unit with humility, knowing that her role in someone's survival was reward enough. News of the incident spread quietly through the hospital and eventually beyond. Sarah became a symbol, not because she sought fame, but because she embodied a truth that resonates deeply, that heroism is not always adorned with medals, and that sometimes the most profound courage comes from those who have been overlooked, underestimated, or forgotten. Her actions reminded everyone that every life is sacred, every second matters, and that faith in one's skills and compassion can move mountains in the darkest of moments. Months later, Nate, now fully recovered, visited Sarah again, not as a patient, but as a friend, as a brother in arms, as someone forever indebted. He insisted on sharing his story publicly, not to elevate himself, but to honor the nurse who refused to let him fade. The story resonated far and wide, inspiring countless others in the medical field and beyond, reminding them that bravery takes many forms and that the difference between life and death can sometimes rest in a single courageous decision. As viewers, when a story like this touches your heart, it's a reminder that ordinary people are capable of extraordinary acts. If this story moved you, if Sarah's courage made you believe in the power of compassion and determination, please engage with this video, like, comment, and share. Let the ripple of hope extend far beyond this screen. Comment below and tell us what courage means to you. How have you witnessed or experienced a moment where someone refused to give up, and it changed everything? In the end, it wasn't just a nurse saving a SEAL. It was humanity refusing to let another human being be lost when the odds seemed insurmountable. It was a reminder that every life matters, that kindness can turn into heroism, and that sometimes, the forgotten can become the most vital force in the world. And as Nate's eyes met Sarah's that final day, there was no need for words, only a silent acknowledgement that hope, faith, and courage are never truly forgotten.